But hold up, I got something to say. But hold up, I got something to say.
I got something to say. I got something to say.
We got something.
I got something to say.
I got something to say. I got something to say.
Hold on, let me get my camera. Hey, this is
I'm be in the middle. SAF Moe. This is episode 5. We're gonna have AC and BC. SAF Moe talking episode 5. We're gonna have AC and BC coming to you talking about
Sovereign citizenship.
and then also the contract slave demo. BC had broke down to us before.
Slavery, it actually is. And so the approach to freeing somebody is actually embrace the whole concept and quit denying it, because they're not going to get rid of the modern day slavery. So you got to learn how to embrace slavery.
Yeah.
And play and from a legal standpoint, then you'll learn how to beat the system hands down all the time. You could always beat the system. You just have to embrace the system.
Yeah. Take it for what it is.
And use the law. One thing that criminals will never do is they'll never look at the law, because they always look at it from a criminal standpoint. But there's way more law to free people.
I think more so the reason we didn't look at the law was because I believe personally that the lawyer was gonna come save me. So I never wanted to look in the law book.
That's not his job. The lawyer, he is in actuality, he's a slave trader.
He's about to hit you with it. He's about to. He talked to you. You saw him before when we was outside at the Selby Jazz Fest, and he came to us, and he's gonna come back again, or we're gonna keep this demonstration going. That's good. We'll be right back. This is episode 5.
Ron, be in the middle. We are
The voice of the voiceless.
I got something to say. You want to hit the light? You want to turn the light on?
No. It's just you kind of dark. That's cool too.
I got something to say. I got something to say. We all got something to say. You got something to say. I got something to say. Let's say it. And when y'all see our platform, we're not talking about no rappers. We're not talking about how much money Beyonce and Jay-Z got. We're not talking about what kind of car Rick Ross just bought. We ain't talking about what Meek Mill just said in that song.
What I want to
know.
know.
We ain't talking about that. We talking about some real life issues, real life shit. The criminal justice system, we talking about the law. The shit that they using against us to keep us incarcerated, to keep us locked away, to keep us in bondage, to keep us in slavery.
Voiceless. We're back. This is episode 5. This is Mo, SAF Moe. This is Ron B in the middle. We are the voice of the voiceless. We are
The voice of the voiceless.
your prison lawyer. I'm here with Ron
B in the middle.
Come over here.
Ron B in the middle.
Ron B in the middle. And we got the street legend, Mr. Crawford. BC, the man that used to get it in, but she's gonna drop some knowledge on us about the system, and we're gonna break it down. Hit us up on our Instagram. I got something to say. Hit us up on our website. I got something to say. Hit us up Twitter on our Twitter account. Snapchat. I got something to say.
Facebook.
I got something to say.
Instagram, everything. We out there.
We out there. We're in the streets. Mr. Crawford, hit us with what you got to say. You got something to say.
Yeah, our criminal justice system is fundamentally flawed for a reason, by design, but it's fundamentally flawed depending on if you're on the opposite side of the spectrum on how the criminal justice system works. But it can equally be used in your favor. society in itself make sure that we as a people we're always in a situation where we will never be able to capitalize off how the system actually works.
When you say we as a people, like who is we? Who are we?
I'll give you an example. Name 10 people that's in your close vicinity or your friends that do not do any drugs. 10 people.
Allowed or just mentally?
Well, if my point is, if you could
You
actually,
won't find that because weed is a socially accepted drug.
and yet it's still a drug.
Right.
So what, it's a mind altering substance. And when dealing with our criminal justice system, you have to actually use your full mental capacity because they're using so many different angles on dealing with people. You know, you have to understand corporate law, you have to understand criminal law, civil law, you have to understand taxes, you have to understand governmental policies, regulations, who's in control of the government. But to a person that's high of some legally approved drugs or illegal drugs or substances, their mind can't function properly with all of these different levels of understanding of law when your mind is kind of like drawn off wherever.
I think like even when I first met you, we were talking about the criminal justice system, and you were mentioning you were talking about slave master and all this other stuff, and a judge and all that, and I was like, and most of the time when I was in prison, I really didn't want to learn the law. Either I was scared of it, it was too complicated. This is off drugs. This is just going to the law library trying to read case law. They make it so hard for you to comprehend it that most individuals Well, I would say most individuals coming to the prison system, they maybe read at a 5th grade level.
That's giving credit. That's giving credit. Most people can't normally put together sentences. Even people that graduate from high school, our educational system is flawed too because they make sure that as long as you get a certificate saying, I can give you a certificate saying that you have education.
Right.
Who am I? I'm a black nigga. Excuse my language. I'm a black nigga that come from the hood. Now, if I give you validation or certify that you're accreditation and whatnot, then guess what? Now you can go take it to somebody else and they can take it for face value. But who am I?
Your job.
Yeah.
Whatever.
People love certificates.
Mm-hmm.
You know, people love certificates when they prove that. But who issued the certificate?
I gotta comment. I don't want to keep that thought. Wizard of Oz. Remember the ending of it?
Yes.
Remember when the scarecrow never had a brain? What did he give him? A certificate. And he said, when he got the certificate in his head, he was like, "Oh, eat us one." He's quoting all this other stuff. Yeah. So that's a classic example of what you're talking about.
Yeah, that's a classic example. We work for certificates. You have to start asking the question: Who created the standard for the certificate?
Exactly.
We have fully people that are not on drugs have fully capable human minds that can contrive and conceive way beyond anybody's certificate, way beyond any certificate. But what people do is they become complacent, or they're happy with, I got my certificate. A lot of women say this is like, I got my degree. I got, guys. I haven't really seen guys do this too much, but brag about their certificates. But people brag about their certificates. They brag about their certificates, but it's like
I've seen guys do it too.
Yeah, I've seen it too, but not to the extent. Women do it more so, because they strive more for as long as they get this position, as long as they get this position now, then they feel they've accomplished something.
Yes.
And that's their goal when they reach that goal. But as human beings, we have full mental capability to conceive way more than just what a certificate says.
Right.
And that's the truth.
That's the truth. It locks you into a box. I got it.
Like me, I would tell anybody, I'm a law scholar. I haven't went to no law school and I haven't learned how to broker deals. I haven't technically learned how to broker deals or.
But you get in the system and it forced you to learn the law.
And from ins and outs on how the system is working, to the point where I said, to the point where I'm saying, you know what, the government's right.
About what?
The government's right, the people are wrong. And the reason why, because I've come to learn how the people run the government, but we enter into this game without knowing the rules.
What does it mean when it says, the government is for the people, by the people?
And this is a true statement. It's a true statement. I would say that there's kind of like three main documents that kind of run how our system works. We have the Declaration of Independence, which talks about human beings. Then we have the Constitution that doesn't even mention human beings. Then we have the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, which talks about the human rights. And the fundamental concepts of law are based upon these three different documents. The Universal Declaration of Human Rights tell you that they can't lock human beings up into slavery. And in the slave trade, the slavery and the slave trade are prohibited in all their forms. So what do? They have a constitution that talks about corporate fictions or entities or representatives of the people. The whole time it's talking about representatives of the people, but they're never talking about the strong. They're never talking about the people. And when they never talk about the people. So then since no one's ever understanding this, how this works. Anybody got their idea on it? Yeah. I'll give you an example. No, I'm not going to read your name. Is this you?
Yeah.
See, he's a liar.
Because it's in the capital letters.
You're a witness. We're in the courtroom. Did I smack him?
No.
But he just said this was him.
Do that again.
I smacked him twice. In the courtroom, you have to speak the truth, whole truth, nothing but the truth. But society has traded this man, and the thing is that he's reduced to a piece of plastic.
Right. That's his name. That's what you said.
Yeah, but in truth, that's not you.
Right.
That's not true.
You didn't have me in your hand.
I didn't have you in my hand, and nor did I smack the shit out of you.
Right.
Let me ask you this. I don't want to just, if you got something in your mind, keep it up. But I've been thinking about this. When you go to court, when you first arrange to the court, how they ask you on the court documents, they make you sort of connect yourself to the charge.
Yes.
What's your thoughts about that?
You remember what I said? The government's right.
Mm-hmm.
I'm saying that they're right. And the problem is the people don't understand how right they are. And the reason why the government is right, because guess who created the government? We the people.
Exactly.
This is why I said, going back to the Declaration of Independence, the Declaration of Independence breaks down the science on how the government gets to, they govern with the consent of the governed, meaning the people. They're designed to protect the life, liberty, and property of the people. But and most people don't even know what a republic is. A republic is a system of government in which the people hold the sovereign power and elect representatives to exercise that power.
Right.
And people don't. There's a science. There's an actual science behind that.
But the problem is that people that conversation is convoluted. The United States is a republic, but it is a democracy. But it's a republic first. It's convoluted because it's a democracy in a way that people can vote. Don't talk about it.
I'm being honest, that shit don't got nothing to do with what a republic is. You got the Republican Party and the Democratic Party, those are Crips of the Bloods or whatever, you know, and I'll say racial issues are tools. Divide and conquer. As long as you have people saying who can do this and who can do that, okay, as long as these people don't come together and realize the scam that's going down here, then no one will ever win.
That's true.
And they can still be in power.
Well, but the thing about it is they're doing three-car model.
Very much, they are.
Three-car model. But again,
so now what should you learn? Three-car model and be one of the people. But when they, do you understand what I'm saying? You have to be one of the people, one of the intelligent people that actually understand how the system works.
Right.
Hands down. anyway, what is it? This is, I'm gonna take this for an example. This is my scepter. We believe in a republic, a system of government in which the people hold the sovereign power, and this is the sovereign power. It's the state still, right? I say, nigger, you were speeding. It's on an indictment.
I accept the indictment. I just accept it.
Because you took it.
So who's holding the sovereign power?
I am.
Now you elect a representative to exercise the power. Sovereign power includes the taxing liability, imprisonment, and things of this nature. Who's holding it?
I am, the people.
So now, guess what you do? In a courtroom, when a person gets sentenced, the judge asks hold that a second. He said, do you understand that you're giving up your rights?
You said, yeah, I'm handing the power back to
And
you.
the paperwork, the plea agreement said, guess what? I assign my rights over to
A lawyer.
DOC.
Oh, no, that's,
The plea agreement says,
oh, the plea agreement, what you talking about, conviction.
yes, because this is what happens. You're holding the sovereign power, and you can dictate what goes on here because you are one of the people holding the sovereign power, the paperwork.
Right.
But when you say to them, hey, go give it to the DOC, the judge says, you understand that you're giving up your rights? And what does the sovereign, the one who's holding the sovereign power say, the paperwork?
Yes, I understand.
Say, yeah.
The judge says, were you forced or threatened into this plea?
No, it's a lie. I'm telling a lie. No, I wasn't.
So what happens?
Then I will accept your plea.
Exactly.
So then once you're holding the sovereign power because you're in a republic, you're holding the power in your hand, the paperwork. It's all about the paperwork.
The charges.
So what's supposed to happen if I say no? I don't understand that.
Stop. Don't say one word. Don't say. That's what I wanted to bring back to the actual arraignment. Because my thing is when they have to read the charges to you, and then after they read the charges, they ask you a question. Do you understand those charges that you're being charged? Most people say no. I'm just saying most people say yes. Not even understanding the charges.
Yeah.
And what if you say no?
Okay. Think that's what they're gonna do. They're gonna lock your nigga ass up. The system is.
So they're gonna make me sit in the county for years or months and months and make me sweat it out until I go back in there and say yeah.
We know this old famous saying, ignorance of the law.
There's no excuse.
There's no excuse.
Right.
Because we're all equal. Equal opportunity. They got public education that teach education. If you're beneath basic education and understanding of our legal system, the system is not going to. They're not going to coddle you. They're not going to give you any favoritism because you're slow. They're going to put you in a corrective institution to maybe give you some GED. They're going to give you some extra. So they're going to appoint.
Mental health and all that.
They're going to appoint an attorney to represent you based upon the fact that you don't have the mental capacity to understand what the people are already supposed to know.
Right.
Do you understand that? When you don't know, then they. Okay, well, we're going to appoint an attorney to represent you.
Yeah, he's going to persuade you.
Yeah, and what is an attorney? He's strictly one who is designated to transact business. He is not to save you.
Yeah, has no.
His job is not to save you. He's a public representative. He's an officer of the court. He works for the state. He is not to save you. So when they do ask you, do you understand the nature of what you've been charged with? What are you supposed to say? Of course I understand the nature of what I've been charged with. You're charged with the sovereign power. And now it's up to you to dictate who has in control of that courtroom.
So what would you say in that situation?
Why, certainly. Before
like when he asks you, do you understand the nature of these charges?
Yeah, of course, and first thing I'll do is I'll go to the court clerk, which is the recorder of deeds. Which is the recorder of deeds, and I will take and register that obligation or that security or that title. Now I will register that title with the court clerk. Because now, see, a problem that we have is we're not understanding how our legal system is in relation to the slave trade.
Let's break that down. Let's take that. Let's break that down.
Okay, the 13th Amendment of the Constitution. Look, the first part.
Neither slavery nor involuntary servitude, except as punishment for a crime whereof the party shall have been duly convicted, shall exist within the United States, comma, or any place subject to their jurisdiction.
In between,
Period.
now read, in between commas, commas indicate that there's a clause or a catch, I would say.
It's a but.
Yeah.
It's like saying but.
Or a catch. If there's a catch to this. Now read that with excluding the first clause, meaning within the first commas.
Which are the accept?
No,
Or,
that's the only part you don't read.
okay. Neither slavery nor involuntary servitude shall, no, it goes, where,
No, that's still within the
it says, shall exist within the United States or any place subject to their jurisdiction.
Read it again so that you can hear it.
Neither slavery nor involuntary servitude shall exist within the United States or any place subject to their jurisdiction.
So, on the surface, back in the day, prior to the 13th Amendment, because that's the 13th Amendment, they used to issue certificates of slavery.
Right.
Or slave certificates.
Right.
Back then, white man or slave owner, they knew if it said Tommie Crawford, owner,
2 slaves.
and then it said, we're gonna call you Jake, and said, Jake, we're gonna call you shit stain. Nigger, your name is shit stain. And it says slave shit stain, right? Then all of a sudden, somebody asks you, are you shit stain? And you say, yes. Well, this certificate indicated that I owned you.
Tommie owned.
Because I'm representing Tommie and you're shit stain, and now I can treat you however I want to because that's what happens when you own slaves.
Yeah.
Prior to the 13th Amendment, they issued slave certificates.
So you said it's the same thing with the DOC. When you come out of court, they hand you over to the property of the DOC. They issue the same certificate.
It happens. Well, I'll break that down from the beginning of this particular section here. What you just read it said, neither slavery nor involuntary servitude shall exist within the United States or any place subject to their jurisdiction. So guess what? They're not going to issue slave certificates no more. But then what did it say in that clause?
Except as a punishment for a crime whereof the party shall have been duly convicted.
So guess what they're going to engage in? They're going to engage in slavery.
Slavery all over it.
They're going to engage, they didn't, that's in the Constitution because guess what? They are going to engage in slavery.
Again, continue it.
They're going to engage in slavery. But we got all these abolitionists, these white sympathetic people and all these niggas that want to get rid of slavery.
Yeah, leave.
So guess what? But and on the other side of that, you'll start seeing the signs behind this. But what happens is, so now once you understand that slavery is actually existing, but the only way it can be done is if a person is what? As punishment, or a party should have, for a crime or a party should have been duly convicted. So shortly after the 13th Amendment was established, guess what they said? Okay, now we got all these runaway niggers running around here. So guess what we do? We come up with a ordinance or a statute that say that a nigger can't look at a white woman.
Can't look at a white woman.
Can't stand around.
Exactly what I was going to.
So guess what happened?
Jaywalking. All the other stuff.
Mary Beth Adams, guess what she said? That nigger stared at me. She certified on an affidavit. I certified that this nigger stared at me. Based upon her being a citizen of that particular state or jurisdiction, her testimony was enough to get a conviction.
Yep.
That's the charging instrument. Because all of a sudden, when now that person is found guilty of it, so then the next thing you know, they scooted the nigga over into somebody's plantation now.
Right.
And they didn't call him a slave now because guess what? The abolitionists, y'all don't want to call them slaves.
So you're crazy.
Now you're going to call you a criminal.
Yeah.
You scared the shit out of Mary Beth. When you scared the shit out of Mary Beth, now all of a sudden, now that's a crime. Intimidated. Yeah. He's walking too close to me. He's just standing there.
Right.
He's jaywalking.
Yeah.
He's loitering.
Yeah.
Lock him back up. Now get the free slave labor out of him. Now they're not. Now everybody's happy because guess what? They're not doing this to slaves no
They're
more.
still getting plantation work done.
Correct. They're still getting not, and then the people that profited by this, now they start taxing the taxpayers for warehousing
The slave.
the slaves at the plantation. It's a twofold win. Instead of all, now no one can say, we don't do slavery now. These are criminals.
Right.
So they actually just shifted the whole concept of slavery into the criminal justice system. And it's the exact same principle to this very day. But what happens is the exact same principle, instead of issuing a certificate of slavery, they issue an indictment.
Right. Which is one and the same.
I'm snitching on you. Here, I snitch on you. Such and such did such and such. I certify this. Then you bring it before the grand jury. What is a jury? A group of people that decide legal issues.
You know, all grand juries are secret. We cannot get inside and find out anything, they determine any evidence or anything inside the grand jury.
They didn't charge you, they charged your person of corporate fiction. Because they can't do this to human beings.
Right.
They can't do this to human beings. It's just, there's a science behind all of this.
And I know the science behind the straw man, and then even corporate in general, because right now, if you look at corporate, even corporate law, a corporation is a human being, you know, but that goes back to, and I don't know how real it is, but they talk about how their name's always in all caps.
What? Here's the thing. See, our legal system is kind of like perfect, and when I say that, you know, a lot of people will probably take offense to the fact that I'm saying that, because everything, like how many companies I have in my name? I have like 4 or 5 companies. If I go buy a car now, I would never put it in my name. I put it in my business name. So when the police pull, they run my plates or whatnot, guess what they're gonna see? They're gonna see it's in a business name, right? Do businesses need driver's licenses? No. Businesses, McDonald's doesn't need a driver's license. Right. But only smart people do this stuff. But here I'm gonna throw you into the average nigga category. Since you know you don't have a driver's license, you're gonna put it in your baby mama's name. You're gonna put, or if you're extremely stupid and you don't have a driver's license or what, you're gonna put it in your name, and guess what? They run the place, they see that it's suspended, then they're gonna take your car or whatnot. But smart people don't put things in their name, they put it in a business name for asset protection, to avoid liability, you know, just in case, what if you get to, if I let you drive a vehicle that belongs to my company, who are you gonna sue? Who is he gonna sue when they have to sue the company? He's gonna sue the company, but all my assets are protected because they're in a different business name, because I'm probably still not gonna put it in my name. And you're gonna be held liable because you're the one driving, but it's asset protection. But understanding the concept that everything we deal with is in corporate fiction. We could talk about the straw man, because the straw man that's our first, you know, when a nigga first hears something about artificial persons or entities, they think they hear the straw man and they get a very negative notion about it, because it's like, that's fucked up that they really did this to us. But the truth is, this is just ordinary course of business.
I was trying to teach people about straw man in the 90s. And they didn't believe it. 1999. And they didn't believe it. You crazy. Nigga, you crazy. Nigga this, nigga that. You crazy. Hell no. But
your person can be sued. Your person is. I'll give you an example of okay, who wants $10 million worth of facts? Someone wants $10 million. Okay, I'm gonna give you $10 million. Now think about it. I'm giving you. You're a human being, which is called a natural person. Right. I give you $10 million cash, and you're holding it in your hands, right? And it's legitimately. I gave you $10 million legitimately. Now, are you going to walk down to Selby with $10 million cash in hand? So what are you going to do with the $10 million in cash? Put it in the bank. You're going to put it in the bank. And then guess what the bank is going to say when you come there with $10 million cash? And then they know that you got to IRS on it. No, well, see,
ID and all types of stuff.
Because you're doing this, but it's all legal. They're going to ask you, what name would you like to What name would you like to insert? And what name did you give them?
My name.
So now 1 minute. So now there's going to, and God we
trust.
Now, look at the concept here. 1 minute, you physically had $10 million cash. Next thing you know, your person is gonna have $10 million in cash at Wells Fargo Bank and trust. Do you see the correlation between that? Your name is gonna hold $10 million cash in trust with Wells Fargo Bank.
But you gave it right back to the corporation.
You physically had the $10 million. Like here, for example, Tommie Crawford, I have $10 million cash.
Right.
But when I go to the bank and I say, yeah, put it in my name, and they're gonna look at my document, my driver's license or whatnot, and or my identification, and then they're gonna see, okay, Tommie Crawford, now they're gonna create a trust account. Wells Fargo is gonna be the settler of the trust.
Right.
And then Tommie Crawford is gonna be the trustee on the account.
Right.
And it's gonna hold my trust property where I am the beneficiary from the trust.
Right.
So now I can go out here and I can tell everybody I got $10 million.
Right.
Do I have $10 million?
Not necessarily, no.
But I'm the beneficiary from a $10 million trust.
And that goes back to all the other law that people don't realize. Majority of law is based on will law. That's a huge part of the Black's Law there. It's basically these Caucasians have come up with a way to pass on wealth. That was necessary for the state.
So now, let's say that this Tommie Crawford, the natural person, I die. Well, who's still going to be holding $10,000?
The bank's not holding it. The trust.
Tommie Crawford, the trust.
Right.
Well, do you heard about Pharrell and Robin Thicke getting sued?
Yeah.
They get sued by.
That was Marvin Gaye's music, but his trust had to be.
Marvin Gaye, which is dead. But Marvin Gaye sued them. I believe it was $7 million.
His trust got received.
So now the beneficiaries from the trust capitalize off that song.
But the thing about it is what we have to keep understand, the reason why they set up this sovereign government, whatever, is so they can continue to pass wealth along to their family members, because they were the only ones accumulating wealth. So when you go back to the whole slave trade and dealing with slavery, and slavery is the first economic foundation they had in this nation, then it makes sense for them to continue to, because they're going to do well. If right now I'm starting this country and I know I'm going to benefit from these individuals, and I'm seeing the future, I'm going to want to have laws and statutes in place so I can continue to get this wealth.
It's only logical. It makes perfect sense.
Makes mercy, yeah.
But now all of a sudden you get a bunch of people that are sympathetic to the black cause, but they're undereducated, poor white trash too. And when I say that is, there's people that just don't know. Like I said before, race is a tool.
Hitler said that.
What?
Hitler looked down. No, he looked down and he said that these people also actually knew that race doesn't even exist.
Yeah, think about it. You're an impoverished, poor white person. And guess what? Here, I'm a rich guy. I'm a rich white man. And I say, hey, niggers ain't shit. They ain't like us. Now I'm giving you we have power.
Right.
My whole goal is to use your dumb ass to capitalize on these defenseless, undereducated people. And why? Because you're undereducated yourself.
Right. But it's also, like you say, if you look at oppression, the only way you can actually operate is that they do something like that. You look at the criminal justice system in general, and if you look at corrections, they always have some form of a trustee individual who's he's not a CO, but he acts like a CO when the CO's not around.
When I was away and I was in prison, we have cars. I don't know how they.
Yeah, well, they don't have it in the state, but I understand the car.
We have cars. We have the religious cars. We have the state cars, the gang cars, and you always have these leaders of all of these different organizations or affiliations or whatnot. And what happens is in the prison system where I was at.
You gotta explain to the people like what a car is, because a lot of people don't know, they've never been to prison, they don't know what a car is.
Sabrina, I got something to say. What a car is. Tell me what a car
A
is.
car is a group of people that you associate with, to organized group of individuals that you associate with inside of a
Like a
prison.
gang.
It's like it's a gang or your organization or your affiliation.
Yeah.
You know, in the federal system, you have state cars. If your state is, you know, if you're black, you have the black Minnesota car. You have your white Minnesota car. If you're from Kansas, you have your white Minnesota car, your black car. And then you have the gang car. You know, the Bloods, the Crips, the GDs, the Vice Lords.
You know they're all together now, right?
Depending on what area you're at. In some places, people still have, they have cars with inside cars, you know, based upon that's just how it is. And the purpose of this, and the prison officials love this.
Yeah.
They love this. They make sure that everybody, they have one record.
It makes their job easier.
Yes, because what they do is they allow leeway for the car leaders to dictate and regulate the actions of each
Individuals in their car.
in their cars to make sure that the prison is ran smooth.
And that's why I used the whole power situation when we were talking about initially, but go ahead with the explanation about continuing with that. But that's what I got was going with the power situation.
But then, you know, by my time in prison, I've learned that, wow, they do this in the world too.
Yeah.
We have civil rights leaders that have a cause. We have different movements. We have religious organizations that, guess what they say? Neither slavery nor involuntary servitude, except as punishment for a crime whereof a party should have been duly convicted. Meaning, the process in which they're going to turn people into slaves is through the criminal justice system.
Correct. The process in which they're going to turn people into slaves.
It's the criminal justice
It's a system. It's
system.
a system. It's an institution.
Could you grab the contract and you start realizing how this stuff works? It's really neat how they do this stuff.
Run. Well, that's how.
Oh,
the other side.
If you have the receipt, right? If you have the receipt to that belt, right? Can I come in and say that that's my belt?
You can say it, but it won't be true.
What if we had to go to court? Who are they gonna say that?
Believe you don't believe, because I'm not receiving. I'm not crime.
It's not just my word.
I got a receipt.
He has what is considered title.
Which is a receipt.
The title or the receipt. So now we're dealing with a different group of laws.
Which is right now to be civil.
It's a civil matter, and then the judge is gonna look at, well, he has a receipt to it, and what proof did I have? I'm like, well, he looked at me and I said he should give me the belt. And guess what the judge is gonna say? Get the fuck out of here with that dumbass shit. And I'm gonna lose in court, even though I paid $350 for the filing fee, when I should've just went and bought
Another
belt. But not
Probably cost $50 or less.
No, 300.
That's the real deal? You sure you ain't get that from $7?
I got that from the motherfucking Smilings episode.
Well, now we're dealing, the judge is gonna deal with a different group of laws based upon ownership of property.
It's not criminal. Yeah, it's not criminal.
Criminal, right? And understanding the side behind that, well, the law favors the owner who has title to the goods.
All the time.
But we're going back to this. We're not arguing about how that belt or your property was turned into your property. But the fact is, the law protects ownership of property. That's a different group. So now, what we're going to do is, like when food is FDA, for example, the FDA, what do? They manage
food or they don't.
the manufacturer of food. Are we mad at them for doing that?
No.
Because they make sure that people process our food to where it's edible for human
You won't
consumption.
get sick, you won't get,
Where is healthy?
yeah, it's that they're not giving you outdated foods for that regulations.
And it becomes a process. It's regulated and it becomes a process. We're not mad at the FDA for
They set standards.
They set standards. So then when it comes to cars, who does the cars? The Department of Transportation?
Yeah,
Or I'm gonna just throw that.
Yeah, probably somebody hired, but yeah, to be along those lines.
So what they do is they make sure that, the government makes sure that the process in which cars are manufactured for the people, and then when you get it, guess what you get? You get the title to it, and so now me and you can, it's the same as if it was the belt. It could be the same as if it was the food. Whose steak is that? I have a receipt for the steak, so therefore I'm the owner. But now, these are commodities, or items that we're used to purchasing on a regular basis. It could be a car.
Mm-hmm.
But now, guess what the Constitution clearly indicates? That the government or the state is going to do what? Engage in the slave trade. Which means that they're going to be slaves. And slaves are the first thing you'll learn about slaves is they're considered what? Property. So now, if the government or the state is going to do what? Engage in the slave trade. Which means that they're going to be slaves. And slaves are the first thing you'll learn about slaves is they're considered what? Property. So now, if I turn this nigger into a piece of property and have title to this property, now we're dealing with a different group of laws, a civil law that says, look, I don't state of Mississippi, I have the title to this nigger. I have the title to this particular piece of property here. And it has the state seal on it that says I have title to it. Now you, as being a lawman, what do you have to recognize?
You gotta recognize the law.
You gotta recognize that paper.
Yeah, but he gonna follow the law. The law is gonna solidify this particular paper. He gonna thing he do is follow the law. If I come up to right now and he has that, I'm gonna respect this piece of paper.
Because it's the law.
It's the law. It's the seal. I gotta follow on stop plates to leave my sovereign.
Because it's the law.
Yeah.
Because I did everything that was legally necessary to claim my nigga.
Yeah.
And to claim my belt.
Mm-hmm.
I have the receipt for it. And then when you go to court, now the law is in effect. So now the reason why I pointed this out is because our criminal justice system, our criminal courts, it's simply the processing of what?
Law.
Of slaves.
Of slaves.
There's no other court like criminal court. Probate court, everybody knows the rules. Divorce court, everybody knows the rules. In any other court, you know the rules. But criminal court is the only process where they they auction off these niggas behind the pen, and guess what? They give you the title, and you don't claim the title. They are
The title again is the charge.
the charging instrument.
Okay.
It's the actual charging instrument.
The affidavit.
No, it's
The affidavit
it initiates the instrument.
correct.
So it's the indictment?
Yes. The charge, the affidavit along with the indictment, they come together to form the actual charging instrument. It actually forms the title. The white woman, what did she say? She said that's all it takes, a citizen's arrest.
Yeah, citizen's arrest. They still, yeah.
Then the grand jury comes in and guess what the grand jury says? Yep, we found it. So now that artificial person is already convicted. Did he get his day in court?
No.
Yes, he did.
They didn't. How did he, when he did the grand jury?
He wasn't there at the grand jury.
He was there. He's an
Artificial, and it's artificial.
He's an artificial person that was convicted. He doesn't have your human rights.
Right.
He has due process and equal protection, but he doesn't have.
So it don't matter that he here in this form.
Yeah,
He doesn't matter.
He's there in the order, like the ID.
No. He's saying like,
No,
you don't give me human rights.
I'm saying.
So as he's not giving human rights, he could be there like this, he could be there like this, he could be there like this, he's there.
He's there.
It don't matter.
Mm-hmm.
He's there. He's convicted.
Yeah.
He's already convicted. That's what the grand jury. Here's the whole concept. You guys know what assurance is? One who is primarily liable to pay another's debt.
That's what insurance is.
So it's primarily liable to pay another's debt. So guess what they say?
My body.
So guess what they say? Look, boss, we caught this nigga that was speeding.
Mm-hmm.
They give you the indictment. And you're his insurance company. Who do I work for? I work for you. I'm the government, and I work for you. And I say, look, boss, this nigga was speeding. What are you going to do? want me to do with it, boss? I owe my allegiance to you. You're one of the people. What do you want me to do with this nigga? Then you somehow come in and say, well, I'll pay his debt by doing time in jail. When all you have to do is exempt the liability. Understanding the concept of sovereignty isn't where you go into a courtroom and start screaming, I'm a sovereign, because guess what you're not.
Because that's what I was gonna, that's the concept.
You're not the sovereign.
So,
You don't want to be the
So
sovereign.
explain that, because a lot of individuals come in understanding that it's some type of merit law, they go into the flag being in a war status, and that all you have to do is come in and plead your sovereign rights.
See, people don't understand the whole concept of sovereignty. Because guess what I've done in the past when I argued with a judge before, but I forgot, I had this judge in this district, he actually said I can't even file no more stuff, because I filed so much stuff talking sovereignty and all of these straw men. I argued all of these different things, and I came to the conclusion that guess what, he's right. And the reason why I'm saying he's right is because he said the reason why he didn't release me is because I didn't say what government I was a part of, or the defendant was a part of, right? And the science behind that is like, damn. So then I went in there to argue that, which government I was a part of it, and he kept on saying the defendant. Well, he wasn't referring to me, he was referring to the defendant, because that's where he has jurisdiction. So I've come to the conclusion
Well,
that...
stop it. When he said the defendant, he's talking about the artificial you.
Yes.
That's what he's got jurisdiction on. He doesn't care about the natural you.
Because nowhere in the case am I involved in the case.
The artificial person.
Right, I'm not a party.
He's talking directly to you. And if you don't understand what he's saying, it's going to go over your head.
And you going to accept it?
No, he just told him, he's like...
No, he said in his orders, I wasn't informed. At first I didn't understand the whole concept of what they were doing at first. But then when I realized that there's a scam going on here, like when I got convicted, I started realizing, wait, there's a scam going on here. The Constitution talks about privileges and immunities.
Right.
It talks about the citizens of each state should be entitled to all privileges and immunities of the citizens in the several states. And I go tell my public defender after I got convicted, no, go use this. And the bitch ran out of the room. She ran out of the room. Because now all of a sudden, I'm hitting on something that
she know about already. But she's an officer of the court, so she can't get involved.
Right, and I'm like, no, put in a motion for my privileges and immunities. They're doing what for the PSI to come in.
I know the PSI.
The PSI people come in and like, oh, she's patting on my shoulder. This is to make sure that you, in the feds, they ship you all across the country. She said, the reason for this is to get you to a prison close to home. Like that was appealing to me.
Now she's using the tactic to divert attention from what you're talking about.
Prison close to home. I'm like, wait a second, I'm not trying to go to prison at all, period.
Zero.
Now, I need you to put in a motion for these privileges and immunities. Because at that particular time, I didn't understand what the privileges and immunities actually was and how it worked.
What are they?
Understanding how this works, right? And it's some basic. I want to say it's basic, but it's complex because people don't understand it. I'll show you some science. Everything that they do, it's for a reason, and it's kind of neat how they do this. Excuse my language. It's kind of, go to the enumeration of powers. The first part of the enumeration of powers, Article 1, Section 8. When you understand who created the Constitution, we the people of the United States created the Constitution. We put Congress in place to make laws. So what does it say? The first part?
Section 8, it says the Congress shall have power to lay and collect taxes.
Stop. I want you to read it too. So what does it say? We the people say that what?
Section 8, at the beginning of Section 8.
The Congress shall have power to lay and collect taxes.
Okay, stop. Okay. Now we're gonna go down here to this. So I'm fast tracking how this works. And this part right here.
To make all laws which shall be necessary and proper to carry into execution. The foregoing powers,
okay. The foregoing power, what was the foregoing power? The power to do what? To lay and collect taxes.
Yeah.
What we fail to understand is what taxes are. So when you learn what taxes are, then you start realizing when a court imposes a sentence, impose means to impose a tax. do you pay all taxes in cash?
No.
No, if I'm a chicken farmer and if I don't have dineros or yen, guess what the government's gonna say? Give me a couple of them chickens.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
so-
what made the season.
Well, they don't put a lien on your house and all that.
But what if I don't have chickens? So and I'm a window washer.
Well, they'll take all your property.
No, I might have to wash some windows
You might, yeah.
to cover the, human labor is also a commodity.
It's always been.
It is a commodity.
It's
So
always-
therefore, these are ways that they collect taxes. Slavery is a tax. So what do? We the people gave Congress the authority to do what? Lay and collect taxes. So now, who did that? We gave them the authority to lay and collect taxes. So now, I'm one of the people, guess what I'm saying? Nigga, you owe some money. You have to pay the look-at-me tax. I'm gonna treat you like a nigga, and I'm gonna say, you look at me, so therefore now I'm gonna tax you for it. But at the same time, aren't you one of the people?
Yes.
Because you are one of the people, and I'm taxing your account, we gave Congress, and first I have to put it on an obligation, I have to put it on a piece of paper. And so now this is a taxable bill, a true bill, that shows there's a tax liability that's authorized from Congress's authority to do what? Collect taxes. So when the judge looks at this, he guess what it says? Well, Congress is taxing that nigga. Does they have an authority to do that?
Correct.
Yes. So guess what happens? So when the people created that situation where we allow Congress to lay and collect taxes, the people said, that's what we're gonna do. We're gonna put a clause in here. We're gonna put a loophole in this bitch.
That's when the amendments and all that come in.
We're gonna put a loophole in here. We're gonna put an amazing loophole in here. Just a second. There's an amazing loophole in here. Article 4, Section 2. What does that say?
The citizens of each state shall be entitled to all privileges and immunities of citizens in the several states.
I want you to read it too, so you can see this. See, it's important to read it.
So tell them what it is again.
Article 4, Section 2. Section 2.
Okay. The citizens of each state shall be entitled to all privileges and immunities of citizens in the several states.
Okay, I'll break that down to the side sheet. Here's something that people don't want to understand, but you're not a citizen. Citizens are artificial persons that exist on paper. My corporations are citizens of the state of Minnesota.
Correct.
In all capital letters.
You're all capital letters. The Article 3 of the Constitution talks about judges having authority over citizens, representatives, public ministers. Those are all representations of who?
The state.
No, of the people.
Other people. Yeah.
The state represents the people. If you smack the shit out of me, right? You smack the shit out of me, guess what I'm gonna do? Technically, I'm gonna go call my police,
Yeah.
and they're gonna represent me against you as a perpetrator. They're gonna represent my interests against your person for you having a crime against me. So the state is my representative now.
And they gonna collect all the money.
And guess what? And I'm gonna be
And all the labor.
and guess what? They're gonna pay me victim's compensation for the injury that you caused me because it's my representative. Does that make sense?
The only thing that I'm trying to connect is
Okay.
yeah. The only thing I'm trying to connect is that the state has stepped in to grab all these individuals and put them in prison. What's the purpose? What's the reason behind it? Why go out and collect all these individuals? The money is fine.
No, that's the only reason.
No, but they can make money other ways.
They do, but
Greed.
okay. No, see, I can show you. We're going to go back to the 13th. You're going to go back to the 13th Amendment of the Constitution. This, I brought this up here to point this out. But this is you remember when they talked about the 13th Amendment? You got to look at the mind frame of these white people that were sitting up here enslaving people. They were making what?
Crazy money.
Crazy money off of this. And so now they have to come up with a compromise. Okay, we're going to get rid. Oh, y'all want to get rid of these niggas? So now we're going to read this. This is the definition of slavery. This is Black's Law Dictionary. So now you start reading this, and they're gonna break it down. And as you read it, I'll break it down how they work this. This is some basics. This is some basic stuff. We're gonna, it's slave trade. Slave trade is cool if you understand the concept. It's some basic stuff. It's great. Read the definition.
I got something to say on Instagram. I'm about to read this from a
Black's
Law Dictionary.
10th edition.
10th edition, slavery. A situation in which one person has absolute power over the life, comma, fortune, comma, and liberty of another.
That's prison.
That's correct.
The war.
Let me read it again. Slavery defined by the Black's Law Dictionary. 10th edition. It says, slavery is a situation in which one person has absolute power over the life, comma, fortune, comma, and liberty of another.
Yes. Read the second one.
The practice of keeping individuals in such a state of bondage or servitude. Slavery was outlawed by the 13th Amendment to the Constitution.
Okay, now it says it was, so now guess what, understand the science, but we just read the 13th Amendment of the
You
Constitution.
got an exception.
And there's an exception, except as punishment for a crime where a party should have been duly convicted. So guess what we're going to do? We're going to convict all these
We're
niggas.
going to come up with statutes and anything.
And then we can keep slavery.
Okay, so now we're going to read the footnotes on this after the case, because it mentions a little case law, but then right after that, it says, although, wait, no, they're going to talk about, because, you got to read the footnotes on this.
So it says slavery wasn't a problem.
Yes.
Okay.
Now read this. This is some gangster shit. Blacks is telling you the truth, but guess what? No one wants to believe.
Nobody wants to go into
No one wants to believe this.
the books, and that's where they're gonna hide it. What he said, the best
The
place.
best place to hide something from a black man, to hide knowledge from a black man, is in a book.
There we go. It's the footnotes for slavery. Slavery was a problem for the constitution makers. Those who profited by it insisted on protecting it. Those who loathed it dreaded even more the prospect that to insist on abolition would mean that the Constitution would die upon it.
Okay, do you understand that?
Not necessarily, no.
And this is the beautiful thing about why I'm here to discuss this.
Break it down, bro.
Our people, we tend not to. I don't want to born and all this other shit. Now, I'm in layman terms. The Constitution makers, you got the North and the South, and they were having a feud
About slavery.
The North didn't want slavery because they thought it was a bad thing. The South said, look, we got these niggas and we making a gang of money off this shit.
Right.
So then you got your Harriet Tubmans and stuff. Now people, everybody wants to, if you say something negative about somebody, all of a sudden they want to treat it a certain way, like I'm a bad guy or whatnot. But I'm not. What happens is, they're like, okay, so now the Civil War came out, they're fighting each other, killing each other left and right. And the South said, look, we are not giving up this damn slave trade. We've been slaying, we've been making cotton, we've been doing all this, we've been making all this money off this. And the North wanted so bad for the Union to come back together so they could put this Constitution together and have the whole Union back together. So they said, okay, let's have a compromise. Because if we keep, because the South said, no, if we've got to end slavery, we're not going to be in this. We're going to succeed from the Union. That's what they said. They banded together, said, we're going to succeed. So guess what they did? They came up with a compromise. Because the North, they said, no, we don't want you to succeed from the Union. So guess what we do? Now continue reading. Do you understand what that said? Because if we keep on feuding this, then the Constitution will die a horn, meaning that, okay, this Constitution of this Union won't be of no avail based upon their inability to come up with an agreement.
Yeah.
So what does it say now?
Those who loathed it, so the framers reached a compromise of sorts. The word slave and slavery would never be mentioned, but the Constitution would safeguard a particular institution, peculiar institution for the abolitionists.
All right.
Yeah, I still call it. Okay, we're in the footnote section here. It can't get any bigger than.
No, I can see,
The word slave and slavery were never mentioned, but the Constitution.
I see. That's, the Constitution safeguard human institution and abolition.
So here you got your Harriet Tubman's, which is a abolitionist.
You can't own me, slave.
So guess what they say? Okay, we're gonna. I'm talking from a white man's standpoint at this time. Okay, we're gonna give this bitch a bone. Which is not gonna call the city. Which is not gonna call the city. Which is not gonna call the city. If you motherfuckers don't want to, if y'all don't want to call the city, fuck it, we won't call the city. We're not gonna call the city.
That's why they built these prisons.
Call y'all niggas criminals. And guess what? All you abolitionists and stuff, we're gonna collect the tax dollars from you guys just to warehouse these niggas.
You know they really have modern day slavery. I'm sure they have it in a lot of other prisons, but in Florida, they really have it. You don't get paid for work. They got these medium facility prisons, they got maximum security prisons, they got low level security, they got all these different security level prisons, but they got more than 100 prisons down there, but at every prison, they have a work camp, what they call, and it's for people who custody is not so high. And they go outside the gate every day and go and work. And you know when they have hurricanes down in Florida and stuff like that, they go out there and clean the roads. You don't get paid for this. You get 15% off your time, but you have to gain it overtime. Like if I got 10 years, I gain my 15% overtime. You need something. You need to move that table.
No, I'm good, Scott. They keep going. Somebody got to be behind here in order for it to continue. No, we're good. It's just
to make sure it don't stop.
Yeah, it'll tape for a while, and then it'll go into a safe mode or stop taping. I want to keep it on this
too.
It
ain't had no activity. You need somebody to move.
Yeah, just keep the mouse moving.
Yeah.
So it won't go to black screen because I want to get it on. I want to have it on both.
And that's probably what happened with my phone too when it started recording that time.
It's cool though. I mean, it's taping some of it. I'm getting the bits and pieces, but let's continue on. This I got something to say. We're gonna continue. How much time you got, bro? Yeah, I just want to make sure I don't.
I really actually teach this stuff to people. And it's not.
Where do you teach it? Do you teach it on the?
I've done it on YouTube. I've done Zoom chats and things of this nature. And I do personal chats to where people could individually, having issues that they're having, so that I could try to clear up their mind, so that they can really see this. If people have actual charges, like, don't get no attorney because he's going to do you in.
Well, the thing about it is that the concept is in my mind when you deviated at. I feel as that your concept is it's slavery. They have you gotta accept exactly what it is, understand it for what it is, and then if you understand it what it is, you can better combat it because you don't get all this other stuff happening. My whole concept of it has always been is the transformation of an individual into a commodity in order for the state to benefit. Now, I didn't have the foundations or the background for it, but it all seemed that way.
Yeah.
Right?
Have you ever worked at a fast food restaurant?
Yes, of course.
Which one?
Burger King.
Okay. When you went to Burger King, guess what you did? You went to the management there and said, I would like to work for you.
Correct.
And guess what they did? They said, oh, sure, we'll hire you. They gave you a name tag, they gave you rules and regulations, and they said, now this is what you got to do.
Right.
One minute you can go on to Burger King and you can order all the food that you want.
Correct.
That's what you're able to do as a customer. But once you put on that Burger King uniform,
You're an employee.
now you're an employee. Now you're subject to the what?
The
Rules and regulations. And the penalties that come along with working there. And you also get the benefits.
Yeah, which is paycheck.
So now so this is the exact same function when you enter into the state.
Correct.
When I worked at Arby's, because I worked at Arby's, they gave me a name tag that says Tommie. They gave me the rule books. They told me what I was supposed to do, and guess what I was? I was able to enjoy the benefits of it. But at the same time, if I did something wrong, my job was subject to be terminated, or else I was subject to pay the penalty for my infractions.
So the difference in what being free or liberated and the difference being enslaved is who controls, who owns that property, who gets that benefit of the monetary in the end. That's the only difference.
Here's the beautiful thing about our system is, right? You remember weren't you the one with the $10 million that I gave you?
Yeah, you gave them $10 million.
And then what did you do?
I put it in a bank.
And you
put it in a trust.
Right, with Wells Fargo, right?
With Wells Fargo and trust.
Right. So then next thing you know, guess what? Wells Fargo, in the fine print, they said, if you go beneath the $10 million, we're gonna charge you $100,000 a month as a penalty.
Correct.
Because then you gotta think about why they did it. Because Wells Fargo, they're gonna take your $10 million and they're gonna give you interest off your $10 million somehow, and they're gonna take your money. They're gonna take your money and they're going to put it in other things so that they can make a profit, and then they're gonna give you interest off of it. But if you go beneath the minimum balance, it's gonna mess up their contracts.
Yeah, the contract.
And as such, now you have to be penalized for it.
Correct.
So now you're content with them taking $100,000 of your $10 million a month.
Yeah.
But whose money is it? It's your money.
Correct.
But now, if you don't want them to take $100,000 a month, if you don't want them to take $100,000 of your money each month, that's what you can do. There's a bank over here called U.S. Bank. You could write a check for what? $10 million, and then you could go to the U.S. Bank and say, I would like to
deposit
$10 million, because obviously you don't like the trust that was established with Wells Fargo.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Correct.
Okay, now all of a sudden, wait a second. They said, well, we're not going to charge you that penalty. We're going to charge you a different penalty.
Right.
So now they're going to take $50,000. Do you want to pay $50,000 for being less than the $10 million? No. So guess what you can do? You can go buy you a piece of land down in, I'm gonna say in Mississippi.
Mm-hmm.
You go get a what do you call it? You go get a backhoe and pull up and dig up some land and put a big ass safe down there. Put it in Tommie's name. Come up with a business name real fast. TC Bank.
Mm-hmm.
That's the name of the land where the bank is.
Mm-hmm.
Who created the bank? You created the bank. And guess where the money's at? You drew all that money from U.S. Bank.
Yeah, Wells Fargo, U.S. Bank.
And then you went to Mississippi and you hid it down there in the trenches of TC Bank. Who controls that bank? How many penalties are they giving you?
None.
Because you have a right, because guess what you created? Your name is on the account with TC Bank. The TC Bank is one entity, and your name is another entity.
Right.
Do you understand how you have two different entities?
Yeah.
Now there's a new trust that's formed, and you're the management, you're the government, you're the board of directors for TC Bank. And now there's no penalties there's no penalties in this account.
So is that not sovereign? Is that sovereign? Is that some variation of sovereignty? Because I'm my own government. I'm my own.
Right.
I'm controlling my own trust. I'm controlling my artificial person. I have control of that.
The United States and the states are corporations.
They've always been corporations,
Mm-hmm.
and it's all the states. The thing about it, they never hide it because when the pilgrims come over, they come over on charters. What the fuck is a charter? It's exactly what a bank sets up when it sets up anything.
Can I be honest with you?
Go ahead.
Getting excited about the government shit, it shows, okay, we know that they're corporations.
Yeah.
Everything that happens in the system is based off corporate fiction.
Correct.
The United States is a corporation, the state is a corporation. I just looked in here, I was like, watch this. What's this? Just a second. What year was the city of St. Paul incorporated?
1856.
Here's what I found from LinkedIn.com. Incorporated
It's a corporation. No one's hiding this, but
A mayor is nothing but a CEO.
of a corporation, a president is a president of a corporation. United, they don't hide this. So guess what happens? You can create a corporation. Everyone is, this is what the whole beauty of how the people run this shit. The people run this shit, guess what they are? Now you get mad because, wait, this whole time it's been it's a corporation. Now you're learning that it's a corporation, but they never said
They never hid it from you.
They never said it. You got
never did it.
You got the city of St. Paul is a corporation. Then you have inside this corporation this thing called the police department. It's a department of a corporation. The treasury department of this corporation. No one's hiding it. So now guess what you do? You come up with the TC Bank. Now, which one? Now, here you got the city of St. Paul, which is a corporation who created a trust. Think about the concept. It's all about the trust. In God we trust.
Not even a structure.
There's always a trust that's established. When a nigga is charged with an offense, they're doing this thing called creating a constructive trust. What happens?
Explain that constructive trust.
Well, it's quite simple. When we established the bank account with Wells Fargo Bank, what was the trust property?
It was my money.
Okay, so now all of a sudden, I'm using you as an example. You're a human being, and you're a human being.
Yeah.
But guess what they deal with? They have the authority to create what? Trust. Slaves. Because the Constitution gives it, the Minnesota Constitution, United States Constitution, they all have a slave provision.
Yeah.
So guess what they do? They say, oh, this nigga, he was jaywalking. He's not acting like a human being. He's drunk driving.
Yeah.
Human beings don't drink and drive. Why? Because that goes against the normal thought processing of being a man. Because the danger that you could cause society.
Yeah.
So guess what they say? Well, we got a nigger. We got this nigger that was doing the such and such. He was drunk driving. So guess what they do? Now, guess what they do? Since they have the authority to create slaves are property. Remember the bank account, what was the property? The money. But now the money's not the property. What's the property? The nigger. The one who was drunk driving. They have justifiable reasoning on doing it. But somebody's going to certify he's drunk driving. So guess what they do? They put him on the books. They put him on the books and they incorporate it into the paperwork. They say, what's your name, boy? Then they put his name on here, and guess what? Who's the seller of the account? The city of St. Paul. That's the one who created the account.
And then you sign all that stuff after they fingerprint you and all that. You sign it. Sign your life away and all that.
Before that even happens, you have to understand what's happening. With the bank account, the trust property was what? The money.
Yeah.
But now they deposit it by booking him. They put him on the books in the state of Minnesota, in the city of St. Paul. Now, that's what now. So now, this is the trust property. And whose name? What's your name, boy? Then they put it in your name. So now your person is the trustee on the account. The state or the city is the seller of the account. And who's the beneficiary from the account?
The city.
No.
Not you. You should.
No, you are.
You should.
You are.
Yeah.
Because the city and the state work for you. So guess what they do? You remember, when you put that money in the account, that's what the state gave you. I mean, when you put the money in the account with Wells Fargo, did they give you a receipt indicating that you had the money there?
Yeah, they give you charging papers. That's the receipt.
Now you have evidence indicating of your ownership rights in the property. It's in your name, and you're the one who's entitled to enforce that obligation there. And guess what? They can't say that, well, we don't have the money now. No, because you have a receipt indicating where your shit is located. So then guess what happened? They took your nigga. They booked your nigga. They told you where your nigga's at. He's at the Ramsey County Jail, downtown St. Paul. And guess what they did? They gave you the receipt, the papers indicating where your property is located. You're a beneficiary from that trust that was established. Your nigga is the trust property. Your person is the trustee on the account, and the city of St. Paul is the settler of the account. And they gave them penalties. As long as this thing is sitting in here, the taxpayers is going to pay the fund to take care of this trust property in here. And then they're telling you, you have a right to get your property out of here. What you do is see, this is the whole reason why I was going over the citizens of each state should be entitled to all privileges and immunities of the citizens in the several states.
Yeah, that's what we were gonna break that down.
Okay, now, first we go back to Congress. Who put Congress in power?
We did, people.
So who has a duty?
The people.
No.
Who? Oh, the government has the duty.
We're gonna look at it like this. And I break it down to the science. Let's say that you're the king. You're the one who holds all the power, right?
Yeah.
Now, you hold all the power, guess what? Now, everybody in the world owes you money, right? But guess what? You have ladies that you want to attend to and spend time with and so forth. Do you want to go and collect money from all these?
No, tax collectors.
So guess what you hired me to do? Because guess what? I'm a reputable nigga. I got a name for myself. And guess what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna go get all your money. I'm gonna get all your money. So now who has the obligation?
You do.
Because guess what? You put me in charge.
I gave you the solve, I gave you power.
To go collect. I'm holding in your name. I'm like, look, man, you gotta collect this money.
You are the king.
Man, where is money at? I'm kidnapping him. Where's his money at? I'm beating him down and stuff. He owes you $10,000 and he ain't trying to pay it. You don't personally know this guy, but guess what? He owes you because he's staring at somebody.
But you have the power now. Is this the police?
Look,
This is the tax collector at this particular time.
because you
I gave you the sovereign power. I gave you part of my power.
to do what?
To go
Lay and collect
Yeah,
taxes for you.
now this is the Congress.
And guess what I'm doing? And I say, look, boss, this is what I'm doing. Are you happy with what I'm doing?
Yes.
Oh, thank you. Pat me on my back. Pat me on my back.
Good.
I'm doing it. I'm doing it. Great job. I'm doing my job.
Yeah.
Do you get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I just need you to sign off to show that I'm doing my job because I have a duty. I'm indebted to you to do my job. I am a debtor. I'm indebted to you because you put me in power to do this. Do you have a daughter?
Yes.
How old is she?
21.
Okay, do you have a young child?
No, I don't.
Okay, we're gonna look at your daughter for an example. All right. Now all of a sudden, this nigga here, he owes some money. For whatever reason, he owes some money. But now here, your 21-year-old daughter, I see her hopscotching. You have a law that says people can't hopscotch. So guess what I do? I wrap my hand around her head, and I start. Do you know you was hopscotching? You violating the law.
Can't do that.
And now I'm putting her arms behind her back, and I'm putting her in a paddy wagon, in a dark paddy wagon. It's real dank in there. There's no air there, because I know this is going to get her to do what? Hey, and I come to you. Now remind you, this is your daughter.
Because she want to be out of the situation so bad that she willing to do anything to get out of it.
No, but no, this is, and forget her. My duty is to who? Him. But understand the sign behind this. This is your daughter that I'm doing this to. I say, look, boss. Now you were happy when I was doing this to him. I'm like, boss, you're sign off on this.
I sign off on that shit.
But boss, I've
That's
been
my
doing.
daughter.
I've
That's
been,
my daughter.
But boss, I've been doing my
You're
job.
fucked up. Yeah,
No, I didn't fuck up because I didn't fuck up because I'm doing my job.
Yeah, but that was my daughter.
But at this point, guess what you do? You exempt me from my duty.
Okay.
You exempt me because I'm just doing my job. Excuse me. I'm doing my job.
But now his daughter.
But in this particular situation,
Yeah, and she's exempt.
not only is she exempt, I'm exempt too.
Okay.
The Bible says, forgive us our debts as we forgive our debtors. Because in this particular situation, if I attack your daughter, who's going to feel the effect of it?
I would.
So, am I your debtor? Yes. Because I'm indebted to you to collect taxes from her, because guess what she is also? Your debtor too. Forgive us, because now we're talking about you. Forgive us our debt, accept our debts, as we forgive our debtors. Because me and your daughter are your debtors.
Yes.
The Constitution provides that Congress shall have the authority to do what? Lay and collect taxes. But then it also says that the citizens of each state should be entitled to all privileges and immunities of the citizens in the several states. And what is the privileges and immunities?
Yes.
It's the exemption. They don't hide this. They don't hide this.
Exemption of the debtors.
Privilege. we'll find us and we can.
So just real quick, back to your story, when you told your lawyer you wanted to file a motion to exact your privileges and amenities, and she ran off, what made you, did something click in your head at that time, like,
Yes.
what the fuck is going on?
Yes, she didn't
Why?
just walk out of there.
She took off.
She took off.
So you like, did I say something that,
And I'm like, what the fuck? It was so odd, I had to say, what the fuck happened? But then it clicked in, okay, something fishy about this.
yeah, something's not
So,
right, why?
because, see, now the reality is, when we go into these court settings, we're not talking, the reality is, we don't talk about the law. We're not talking, but guess what they're doing? They're following the law, but they're not talking about the law. The whole time, they have you feeling so guilty.
Yeah, they don't really like you.
This
But they
is-
find out a way to beat
Well, the thing about it is the state sets up everything, and the pretender that you're dealing with, along with the state sets everything up to make whatever crime you supposedly committed, makes you the individual, it makes you feel as though everything that happens was because of you, and there's no reasoning to get you off of this, get you out of this situation.
So put it like this, while you're operating on a level of psychological guilt,
Yeah, they're making you feel bad, they're showing you pictures or
you know G-Dep, you know what G-Dep is? You know he murdered somebody?
from Puff Daddy?
Yeah.
Okay.
He murdered somebody.
No, I didn't know that.
No, he murdered somebody. Did you hear about that? No, he murdered somebody a long time ago. And guess what? They never caught him about it. But the shit has fucked with his head so much, guess what he ended up doing? Like 9, 10 years later. He confessed. The family was like, why did you come in and, why did you not, the family of the victim came in, dad already let it digress and everything else, and all of a sudden, now he came in, his guilt was so strong, he went to the people and said, I did it.
So what's the end result?
They ended up locking him up, they didn't give him as much time because he turned himself in. But he's probably still in prison now behind that, but they gave him some time behind it. It was like, shit, they wasn't looking for him.
Yeah, but the
Case
guilt,
was closed.
but
There was never no case, they didn't have it.
But the thing about it is like, what we're talking about is the guilt, but I'm telling you, it's not just the prosecutor, it's your public pretender who brings this guilt along. Because nobody, when you say, well, I didn't do the crime, well, look at these pictures.
We're going back to the cop. We're going back to the cop that pulled you over for the speeding. What did I say? He said, you could have, even if it's a small amount of guilt,
It's enough.
do you understand? There could have been a kid
Right.
running across the street. So what is he doing? He's creating this whole concept of guilt. No, I didn't. Because the nigga's still in the piece of white people pie or whatnot. The whole concept of that, people are so afraid of the white man. And we can lie all day and say that overall we're not. But no, we're afraid of the white man. And when we're afraid of the white man, this all of a sudden happens. Anytime we do anything that they don't approve of, then guess what? We feel guilty. And they know that. That's just how the system is.
But that's coming through cultural, family, black folks,
Reinforcement.
being reinforced throughout our.
First time going to jail, that's what they do.
Your mama's gonna come and see. I'm just telling you.
Your mom's gonna get you locked up the first time. Just go tell them.
Yes,
tell them
you take the plea deal.
Yeah.
You know you did it.
Just come home.
Yeah, exactly.
But your mom ain't gonna tell you nothing wrong.
Right, exactly.
Even though she ain't never been through this, she doesn't know what's about to go wrong. She never been in this situation.
My granddaddy warned me about Florida, North Florida, before it even happened to me. I got a DUI down there in 2009. And he told me, he said, take the deal for the 6 months, take the deal. And I'm like, okay, granddaddy. And it went in 1 year and out the other year. I didn't take the deal. I took probation instead of taking the 6 months. 1 year and 1 day probation. Well, or 11 months, 29 days probation. That's what it was, 1129. That's the name of it, 1129. I took the probation. 2 years later,
They're setting you up.
and 2 years later, I hadn't paid off all my fines from the probation, so I'm still on probation. Now, mind you, I only had 11 months and 29 days probation. So, It's 2 years later, and I'm still on probation because I hadn't paid off all my fines. And then, 2 years later, I get in a high-speed chase. The police get behind me again. I'm drinking and driving again. And he tried to pull me over in front. I whipped around him and just took off because I know I'm drinking and driving. I got away. They called me because somebody told where I went. Well, lo and behold, my granddaddy told me way back then too. He said, and my granddaddy, everybody racist in Florida, black people, white people, everybody. I love my granddaddy to death, but he was racist. He said you need to get out of Marietta, Florida. The crackers gonna hang you down there. And now fast forward to the high-speed chase. I get caught and I go to trial and I lose. And I get 10 years down there. He was right. 2 years prior, telling me, get out of there. Them crackers gonna hang you down there. I don't use that word. I don't like using that word. I don't condone it or nothing like that. But my granddaddy told me this 2 years prior to it happening. And I got home down there for 10 years for a high-speed chase.
What do you read it?
Privilege.
A special legal right, exemption or immunity granted to a person or class of persons, semicolon. An exemption to a duty, period. A privilege grants someone the legal freedom to do or not to do a given act, period. And immunizes conduct that, comma, under ordinary circumstances, comma, would subject the actor to liability, period.
Okay, we're gonna go back to us.
We're still talking about guilt, but we're not talking about, and we moved on.
Put it like this. Okay,
But we don't have to talk about it, I just wanted to clarify.
I'm gonna give you an example of this guilt thing right here, right? We're in the 1800s. We're in the 1800s, and I'm a slave owner. Right? I'm a slave owner, and this black man is a slave owner.
This was black slave owners.
Okay, and I own this white girl. I own a white slave. This bitch, I own her.
Mm-hmm.
And all of a sudden, on the corner of my cornfield, guess what I'm doing? I'm out here taking the sex from her.
Mm-hmm.
I'm taking the sex from her because guess what she is? She's my slave. She's
Under
my
property. You do
I'm taking it from her. And she's screaming, no. And guess what all these people do? They come, hey, leave her alone. Leave her alone.
It's my property.
And guess what they do? They take me to jail. They took me to jail. Can't you believe this? They took me to jail. Can't believe because I'm drunk too. Like they took me to jail. So now, I know that this bitch is my property.
Right.
I know she's my property. So guess what they're saying? You're a fucking rapist.
Can't be.
Look,
They can say it.
the narrative in which they are holding inside their mind
They can
is
say
that
it.
they're saying I'm a fucking rapist.
Yeah.
They're saying I'm a rapist. They're saying I'm a rapist. And to everybody, all the spectators seeing me take my slave's pussy, they're saying I'm a rapist. Then I go before the judge.
Right. They're gonna break it down.
You're guilty of raping that white girl. That's what the charging instrument says. But guess what I got? I got superior papers.
You got time.
This bitch is my property. All that shit about guilty of raping a white girl, no, that doesn't apply. Because this white girl is my property. And I can do with my property what I want with my property.
Mm-hmm.
And guess what the judge is going to say?
Get out of my courtroom.
Am I guilty? Am I guilty of raping her? It's a psychological thing. If I feel remorseful about it, if I feel guilty, that's irrelevant.
Yeah.
But where's she at? Now I'm gonna probably beat her for her screaming long enough to get these people to come sit up here and come get me and lock me up. But because the legal paperwork are sitting up here saying that this is my property and I can do with my property I want. But now while you sitting here talking about me being guilty, I don't give a damn what the fuck you think. That's my thought process.
Mm-hmm.
I don't care about what you think. Am I guilty of it? Who fucking cares? What the law saying is, look, this is my property. I want my property released.
But so
And I didn't commit a crime.
And
That's my property.
But the difference is the psychological understanding of it. like you said it, I don't know your situation, but when I brought up mom coming in, trying to convince me to take these charges, and they utilizing that as a guilt. Everybody's allowing that to happen, right? Come in, let your mom talk to you and confess these crimes. Come on, just tell us what you do. Go ahead and take your ass to jail. That guilt is and I'm trying to tell you, in our community, it seems to be such a, it's at a level that we can't even decipher logic from doing something stupid like turning ourselves in.
Mm-hmm. But it's going back to this, it's a part of the programming. Our people are programmed. Back in 05, I wouldn't have never saw so many homosexuals running around.
Right.
I didn't see homosexuals running around. Fast forward today, you can't call a man now, because guess what?
He might have another pronoun.
And he says that he's a woman.
Right.
Where did this stuff come from? It comes from programming. Human beings, even though pit bulls are dogs and they're easy to train, human beings are just as easy. Because guess what? Reverse psychology. I'll give you an example. Don't think of a giraffe.
Pavlov means.
Don't explain that to me. Don't think of a giraffe.
No, he's telling you, when he tells you that, it's gonna automatically, your mind's gonna think.
Automatically,
Yeah, if he says don't do it, then you're gonna do it.
Yeah.
But he's
I'm the government. Don't think of a giraffe.
right, yeah, and it's behaviorism now.
I'm telling you, you know, you hate me, I'm the government, and I'm saying, don't think of a giraffe.
Right.
Who the fuck is the government to tell me not to think of a giraffe? Now, the next thing you think of,
I'm faultless.
Go ahead, I'm gonna keep on.
I've been working all day. I've been at work since 9 o'clock this morning.
Go ahead, take your break.
next thing you're doing is thinking of a
Giraffe.
giraffe. When was the last time you thought of a giraffe?
Never until you brought it up.
See, it's a part of the programming.
Right.
Our government, when you talk about hate, when people hate the government, guess what they do? They love you hating the government, because guess what? As long as you hate the government, you ain't never gonna read the laws.
Right. You're gonna, well, that,
The law is telling you how to go free.
right. Right.
The law's telling you how to go free over and over again. It says it over and over again in the law, how to go free. And when I teach this stuff, I'll show you, read what the law says. And guess what you have in the courtroom? Everybody in there are what? Law enforcement officers.
Mm-hmm.
But guess what they don't want you to do? They don't want you to look at the law, because now if you you can enforce the law. You can make them enforce the law that talk about you going free.
Hmm.
So guess what they do? They fill your mind up with so much guilt.
Right.
You did it.
And you just admit it.
You did it.
Mm-hmm.
That white girl in there,
Mhm.
what did I do? That white girl that slave mine, I did do what I did to her. But guess what? The law says I can do that.
Right.
Whether I'm guilty or not, the law says I can do that.
Yes, totally different.
So guess what the judge says? He go tell the sheriff, who's a law enforcement officer, let him go, and go release Mary Beth to him.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's what the law says. Everybody's still mad that I did it to her, but that's what the law says. It says I can do it.
Follow well. That's right.
That's simply what the law is.
You know, I just wanted to talk about the whole guilt concept and how they utilize it within the system.
Do you think that slave owners gave a
They don't,
damn?
they mixed up, because they understood, what they did understand is what was really going on, and they understood that it was property to them. It wasn't
Do
human.
you think this judge gives a damn about giving you 10 life sentences?
Don't care. You mentioned it initially. Give a man 10, 6, 7, 8 life sentences. That's no
Do you
remorse.
think that public defense? Think about it. You sat up here. No, you take yourself out of take the hood out of the equation.
Mhm.
Just imagine. Being honest, do you want some gangbangers outside your house with guns around your kids?
Of course not.
But how's the only way to get them out of there?
Call the police.
And so guess what happened? So they created a system. The attorneys looking at it like, wait, I don't want this around my kids either.
Right.
So guess what they're sitting there looking at this person as a criminal.
As a slave, as a nigga, as whatever.
maybe we give them 15 years, because it's gonna take that much time to process the criminal mind out of this person.
Right. That makes sense.
People, and so now it's technically justifiable because this person is not suited to live in society with normal people.
Correct.
So, and now this attorney, he doesn't know you. All he knows is that you got a track record. A jacket says that you armed robbery, bank robbery, stolen car, loitering, assault. He sees this record and like, now you're expecting him to try to really help you get back on the streets?
He doesn't want you on the streets. He doesn't want you on the streets.
And he's a public
Pretender.
No, see, that's, you're coming from a criminal standpoint.
He's a public defender.
Who's the public? The people are the public.
Yes,
And guess what he's seeing? This nigga is horrible for who?
Yes, the public, the general public. Yeah.
So guess what he's doing? He's really defending
The public.
Public.
He's not defending you.
Right.
He's defending the public.
Yes. You were dumb enough to tell him all the little dirt about you.
Mm-hmm.
And trust him, this dude, the court and the dude, they're all there to protect who? The public, not your private interests.
Right. That's the problem. People, they don't understand.
So and guess what happens? When you start learning how to protect your private interests, and you start understanding why they're doing it, then guess what you say? You know what, maybe I shouldn't be a piece of shit. Meaning, instead of being such a bad person, you know what, I'm not gonna tote guns around these little kids, because guess what? They might have a justifiable reasoning on wanting me locked up. You have to just change your frame of thought processing. Like now, I'm not gonna do some stuff to endanger other people, because guess what, I'm looking at how other people might view me.
And you think that's justifiable for them locking you up?
No, what I'm saying is, when I've acquired the knowledge on how the system works,
Then it becomes, I know how to.
I have to understand everybody's
interest.
everybody's standpoint.
Yeah,
Why isn't this attorney trying to help me go free?
because you're a public nuisance, you're a danger to the public. It's his job, he's been empowered
Yes.
by people to put you in jail.
Do you see what I'm saying? So now, since I'm such a bad person, right? Guess what? On paper, it looks like I'm a bad person, but guess what? In my mind, guess what? I've changed. I've done so much. I've done so much to elevate myself in understanding. And I know this public defender is not going to represent me, because guess what? It shows that I'm a public nuisance. So now, guess who has to come in? I have to come in, and I have to
Represent yourself.
now. I have to start checking everybody in that courtroom.
You have to represent yourself.
And my interest in this courtroom.
Right, but the problem with that is that first of all, they make you feel as though you don't have the knowledge to be up in there.
And this is what the problem is. Ignorance of the law.
No excuse. There's no excuse.
So no matter how many times you go try to, no matter how many times you try to defend Lil Willie or Lil Jojo or whatnot, ignorance of the law is no excuse. Because if you're not smart enough to get out of this situation, then guess what? The system is gonna roll over you. This is the reason why everybody said that I was raping that white girl. They said I was raping that white girl, but guess what I had? Had enough knowledge.
Yeah.
There's enough laws on the books
Right.
to protect me.
So when did you decide you were gonna learn the law? When?
When I got found guilty in my case, the jury, I started, my public defenders, what they did, they painted this picture, like the house that I owned, like I didn't live there. Like, whoa, these guys painted this wonderful picture, like, as if I didn't own this, I didn't live in this house that I had owned. And I'm like, oh, they painted a picture. So right before the jury deliberated, guess what happened? I'm packing out all my stuff in the county jail. I'm ready to go home, because I know damn well they're not gonna find me guilty of this shit. That's my whole assumption. So I go back to court, I'm ready to go so I can be with my lady and everything like that. And all of a sudden, and when they start reading the verdicts, I'm expecting to say not guilty, but there was no nots. It was just guilty. Oh. Guilty. Oh. Guilty. Oh. I was shook. How the hell did this happen? In the split moment, and within a 2-minute time reading of, so guess what happened? So they created a system. The attorney's looking at it like, wait, I don't want this around my kids either.
Right.
So guess what they're sitting there looking at this person as a criminal.
As a slave, as a nigga, as whatever.
Maybe we give them 15 years because it's gonna take that much time to process the criminal mind out of this person.
Right. That makes sense.
People, and so now it's technically justifiable because this person is not suited to live in society with normal people.
Correct.
So now this attorney, he doesn't know you. All he knows is that you got a track record. A jacket says that you armed robbery, bank robbery, stolen car, loitering, assault. He sees this record and like, now you're expecting him to try to really help you get back on the streets?
He doesn't want you on the streets. He doesn't want you on the streets.
And he's a public
Pretender.
no, don't see that's you're coming from a criminal standpoint.
He's a public defender.
Who's the public? The people are the public.
Yes,
And guess what he's seeing? This nigga is horrible for who?
Yes, the public, the general public. Yeah.
So guess what he's doing? He's really defending
The public.
He's
not defending you.
Right.
He's defending the public.
Yes. You were dumb enough to tell him all the little dirt about you.
Mm-hmm.
And trust him, this dude, the court and the dude, they're all there to protect who? The public, not your private interests.
Right. That's the problem. People, they don't understand that.
So and guess what happens? When you start learning how to protect your private interests, and you start you start understanding why they're doing it, then guess what you say? You know what, maybe I shouldn't be a piece of shit. Meaning, instead of being such a bad person, you know what, I'm not gonna tote guns around these little kids, because guess what? They might have a justifiable reasoning on wanting me locked up. You have to just change your frame of thought processing. Like now, I'm not gonna do some stuff to endanger other people, because guess what, I'm looking at how other people might view me.
And you think that's justifiable for them locking you up?
No, what I'm saying is, when I've acquired the knowledge on how the system works,
Then it becomes, I know how to
I have to understand everybody's
interest.
everybody's standpoint.
Yeah,
Why isn't this attorney trying to help me go free?
because you're a public nuisance, you're a danger to the public. It's his job, he's been empowered by
Yes.
people to put you in jail.
Do you see what I'm saying? So now, since I'm such a bad person, right? Guess what? On paper, it looks like I'm a bad person, but guess what? In my mind, guess what? I've changed. I've done so much. I've done so much to elevate myself in understanding. And I know this public defender is not going to represent me, because guess what? It shows that I'm a public nuisance. So now, guess who has to come in? I have to come in, and I have to
represent yourself.
Now I have to start checking everybody in that courtroom.
You have to represent yourself.
And my interest in this courtroom.
Right. But the problem with that is that first of all, they make you feel as though you don't have the knowledge to be up in there.
And this is what the problem is. Ignorance of the law.
No excuse. There's no excuse.
So no matter how many times you go try to, no matter how many times you try to defend Lil Willie or Lil Jojo or whatnot, ignorance of the law is no excuse. Because if you're not smart enough to get out of this situation, then guess what? The system is gonna roll over you. This is the reason why everybody said that I was raping that white girl. They said I was raping that white girl, but guess what I had? Had enough knowledge.
Yeah.
There's enough laws on the books
Right.
to protect me.
So when did you decide you were gonna learn the law? When?
When the jury, when I got found guilty in my case, the jury, I started, my public defenders, what they did is they painted this picture, like the house that I owned, like I didn't live there. Like, whoa, these guys painted this wonderful picture, like, as if I didn't own this, I didn't live in this house that I owned. And I'm like, oh, they painted a picture. So right before the jury deliberated, guess what happened? I'm packing out all my stuff in the county jail. I'm packing out, I'm ready to go home, because I know damn well they're not gonna find me guilty of this shit. That's my whole assumption. So I go back to court, I'm ready to go, so I can be with my lady and everything like that. And all of a sudden, and when they start reading the verdicts, I'm expecting to say not guilty, but there was no nots. It was just guilty. Oh. Guilty. Oh. Guilty. Oh. I was shook. How the hell did this happen? In the split moment, and within a 2-minute time reading of
more than ever now.
I got something to say.
Do it now.
I got something to say. I need you. I need you. I need you. I need you. I need you.
I got something to say. I got something to say.
More than ever now.
Can you say I got something to say? One more time.
I got something to say.
Yes, sir.
I got something to say.
I need you. I need you. I need you. I need you. I need you.
Shut me up. Shut me up.
Come on, COVID, so we get your introduction. What you want to be, Baby Crit? You want to be Mr. Crawford? What do you want to be?
I'll be Tommie.
Tommy?
Yeah, Tommie Crawford.
Tommy Crawford?
You know, Mr. Crawford.
Mr. Crawford. That is Mr. Crawford.
You know, people know me on the streets.
Street legend.
Yes. Yeah.
Street legend.
Yeah.
I'm gonna do the intro. I'm gonna do the intro. We're about to start right now.